I do want to talk a little bit about Owen Benjamin. Oh my God, Owen. Owen. Owen puts out these videos, and it's terrible because he gets taken off. He gets taken off of YouTube. He gets suspended constantly on social media. Him, like anyone else, should have the ability to say whatever the fuck he wants. I don't give a fuck what Owen Benjamin wants to say. He should be able to say it without people reporting him and his feed getting pulled and YouTube's dumb fuck rules about conspiracies and shit. You should be able to discuss anything. I truly believe that, and I think that's what's really being encroached upon as far as our freedoms go, because it's this arbitrary set of rules that a company with people in charge that have an agenda are running. So if they don't like something personally, they're going to eliminate it. And that isn't really the spirit of, freedom of exchanging ideas and freedom of speech and whatnot. So I don't care what he says. I was talking about the flat earth thing last week. And it's just so preposterous. Last night, I got sucked into the rabbit hole and watched so many flat earth videos because I'm fascinated by the people that believe it. Like, that's what's fascinating to me. You could debunk every single thing they say. Every single thing they say as to proving that the earth is flat, or at least trying to say there is no proof that it's a sphere. Because that's what their cop-out line is sometimes. Hey, I don't know. I'm just open to thinking maybe it's flat. It's not. It's not flat. It's just not. But they're like, no, they've been lying to us about so many things. Why would they lie about this? There's no evidence. There's no this. There's no that. It's one of those things like when you walk into a kitchen and you smell burnt toast, you can know that toast was burnt in the kitchen. You didn't see burnt toast. You didn't, maybe the toaster's hot. You see smoke, and you can make an assumption that toast was burned in the kitchen. With all of the information we have, we can make a very, very reasonable assumption that the Earth is a sphere. It's one of many spheres that are planets and other planetary bodies. It rotates once every 24 hours, spins around the sun once every 365 days. It has gravity due to its mass. All these things. We have an atmosphere. All these things have been looked into. There have been experiments done. There are cause and effects that let us know that this is what's happening. The flat earth thing, they just come out with this utter and complete nonsense about why the earth would be flat. And you feel silly arguing it. Like, I feel stupid saying, well, obviously, if it's flat, this would, of course, stop it. Why are you arguing? It just seems stupid. It's like arguing Santa Claus or something. But boy, are they just a dedicated bunch. And you can't tell. You can't really tell. I think there are three classes of people. There are mental patients who just believe this. There are people that want to be part of something. They might not believe it, but they like the community. I was watching a documentary last night, Behind the Curve, and it's a pretty fair piece on the flat earth movement. They speak with astronauts and astrophysicists, as well as people that believe in a flat earth. And it's pretty fair. They go back and forth, but there's no way to make the people that believe in flat earth come off as knowledgeable and as educated on astrophysics and geology and just simple things that make this planet what it is. So it's very hard to come off on the winning end of it if you're a flat earther. I've watched so many of these other things. There's, who are they called? Globe Busters, Globe Busters. They're a show. They do a show every week. It's like a few hours long, and they talk about flat Earth, and they make fun of scientists and physicists as they debunk these globebuster guys, and they have nothing. It's like their argument a lot of times is a scientist will talk about gravity and the formulas behind it, and the scientists many years ago that proved that gravity is a thing, and it's a force, and it's created by mass, and they'll just go, "Oh, really, gravity?" And you're like, well, that isn't an argument. You can't just poo-poo gravity. How about an argument? How about a debate? What you think it is. And there were a few things that were hilarious. Again, I could sit and try to debunk it, but it's nuts. They actually believe that gravity is a electromagnetic force. Like, literally. Take a balloon, rub it in your head, and take confetti, and it'll stick to the balloon. They think that's how you stick to the flat Earth. Like, they had to come up with something, and that's what it is. They have to come up with something, so they come up with anything. And it's so off base and implausible when placed next to the science that says we're a sphere with gravity pulling in all directions of a sphere. It just doesn't make sense any other way. But again, to argue it is silly. And I watch so many scientists debunking point by point their beliefs in the flat Earth. And it's so funny to watch because the scientists are so prepared and they have science behind it, a history, a long history. The Greeks knew that Earth was round, was a sphere thousands of years ago. Like thousands of years ago, they figured it out with somebody looking at a shadow and going, that's interesting. I wonder if, and then doing experiments where they couldn't call a guy. They had to send a runner. Like they had two poles and the shadows, the measurements of the shadows on these two poles that were quite a distance apart, casting different length shadows. They were able to actually figure out the circumference and diameter of the Earth based on these simple experiments for a couple of thousand years ago. But then all of a sudden these people come up with the flat Earth thing, and again, they try to explain things away with these just ludicrous ideas. My favorite was that it's constantly accelerating, like the flat plate. We stick to it because it's constantly never-ending gaining speed. Like if you accelerate in your car, you'll be pushed back in the seat. But the second you reach a speed, you don't feel that anymore. Now you're just there. So not only will it have to move, but it has to keep accelerating at a constant rate to keep your feet on the ground. Does it ever end? How fast does it go? It makes no sense. And the electromagnetic thing is funny too, because electromagnetism works differently or affects objects differently based on what they're made of. Metal or paper, something that conducts electricity as opposed to not. But we know that gravity is a constant. We can drop an object in a vacuum and it's going to fall at, 9.4 feet per second?
9.8 meters per second squared.
Yeah, per second squared. So, and that's a constant. So whenever you get a variable, it's not fucking gravity anymore. But again, to argue it is silly. But I love listening to the arguments. So, long story, keep making it longer. I guess we talked about Owen Benjamin and the fact that he was a flat earther, and I'm watching some of his flat earth commentary from his compound in the woods somewhere with his family. He's a, good guy. I've never had a problem with Owen. So I guess word got back to him. Fans talk and they say things, and I'm sure it wasn't accurate. I'm sure he's going, hey, Owen, did you hear Anthony's shit talking you or something? Where I wasn't. I was just talking about an ideology that isn't sound. It's not backed up by any type of science whatsoever. So that's what I was talking about. And Owen I guess got a little fun. But it's funny. He called me. He said I had Down syndrome. Do you have the video? Yeah.
But here's a little story about Anthony Cumia. And I like Anthony Cumia.
I like
Even
you,
though
Owen.
he just did this weird attack thing. I get it. I don't think he's a shill. I just think he's a baby boomer.
Technically, I am.
And I got a story about,
Right at
like,
the
'cause
end.
Anthony Cumia is a pretty rough dude. You know, he's like a New Yorker. And you rarely see his vulnerable side. But one time I was in his studio, and he looked real nervous. And he was like, and he usually doesn't look nervous. He just looks angry. And one day he was a little nervous. And I was like, I'm going to go. He's like, hey, man, can you just stick around for a little bit? And I'm like, why? He's like, well, you know.
Now, could you pause
And
this
then
for
when
a moment? As I'm watching this, I'm going, oh my God, he's just lying. He's like lying about something because this never happened. I don't remember grabbing Owen by the hand and asking him to hang out. So I didn't know what was going on. I'm freaking out thinking, oh, fuck, Owen's like going to lie about something, but it's fucking hilarious.
And then one of the producers like, Anthony's got a health situation, and he's going to be getting results from a doctor. And I was like, oh, yeah, no problem. So I was hanging out, and he was just talking and yapping, but I could see that he was scared. And Anthony, I know you remember this story. And then he held my hand. And it wasn't gay. It was just a scared man. And then he got the call, and he took the call. I was like, hello. And he heard the worst news he could have heard. It turns out he was positive for Down syndrome. And I was there with him. And, like, sometimes there's a window into someone's life, you know, where, like, he got the news that he has Down syndrome. And, you know, he probably got it from his parents, and he didn't know, but he's fine. And so I thought that he would have my back because I was with him. I held his hand as he found out that he is mentally retarded, and it's genetic. And he still gets to do his little show, and he gets to talk about Donald Trump all day. And I know his secret. And listen, I didn't want to tell everybody that I knew what it was, but he has Down syndrome. Anthony Cumia tested positive for Down syndrome 3 years ago, and I was there. And so I know he likes to put on his tie and wear his... I can't keep his straight face. He likes to put on his fancy pants, and everybody gives him a lollipop as he goes into his little studio with his little green screen. And, like, sometimes they don't even turn on the camera because they just want him to be happy. You know, his studio was first donated from a Make-A-Wish Foundation. You know, someone... Because it's jarring to find out you have Down syndrome when you're 70 years old.
70.
He lived his whole life not knowing why the other boys made fun of him or why he kept taking a shit in a urinal at school. But I didn't judge him when he held my hand.
True.
And he shouldn't judge me just simply because he doesn't understand the nature of how a globe or a flat plane works. Big laughs. Yeah, that's a funny one, huh?
That was funny. That's cool. God damn, that's funny, man. He really set it up well. Like, I was watching it the first time, and I'm going, where is he going with this? Like, what is he doing? And then apparently I have Down syndrome. It's so funny. Look, I fucking love Owen. I think he's hilariously funny. Every time he's been on the show, he's funny. I do have his back. I think Owen's videos, when he does whatever public appearances, stand-up, piano playing, the guy's fucking brilliant. So I do have his back. I gotta know he knows that. Like, when it comes to defending his rights to say things, of course, 1,000%, Owen. I back you completely. The only thing I'm saying is that your take on our universe and the Earth's place in it is fucking ridiculous. Should you be able to say it? Should you be able to believe it without Like, ha, ha, ha. Yes, of course. People are going to go ha ha, but that's their prerogative and their right also. I think believing in a flat earth goes against every bit of logic that we've acquired as thinking beings on this globe. It goes against all of that. There's nothing that defaults to a plane. Everything defaults to a sphere. The strength of an object in spherical form is inarguable. You can't argue it. The fact that in a weightless environment, in a vacuum, without any outside influence, liquid becomes a sphere. It's a natural order. It's something that happens in nature. A plane makes no sense. And again, I hate myself for even arguing it because it's that ridiculous. But I back you 1,000%, Owen, in your quest to change people's hearts and minds, or at least get them thinking. And again, like I said, I watched so many of these programs and podcasts and documentaries last night just based on that. So mission accomplished, Owen and Mark Sargent, another one of these flat earther guys that goes around for no other reason than to be popular. That's all this guy, Mark Sargent, is hilarious. He goes around wearing a shirt that says, "I am Mark Sargent," with the flat earth logo on it. And when he goes to these conventions and get-togethers and whatever, flat earthers, wherever they're meeting, he is a celebrity. And he loves that. He loves being recognized. He loves having people take pictures with him. And he loves that people like hearing him speak about flat earth. It's part of his life now. If tomorrow there was absolute proof that the earth is a sphere that you could give to this guy and it would be irrefutable, he would still go around saying flat earth because it's his life now. It's not a part of his thinking of science, or it's his entire life is the fact that he's a flat earth guy and he's popular in the flat earth community. And I noticed a lot of those motherfuckers on the programs I was watching. When scientists, like I said, well thought out scientists, astrophysicists, chemists, geologists, people that have studied over the course of the years. But you mentioned that, by the way, and they'll say, well, they studied in an indoctrination center, the schools that put out a globe in every classroom. Why? Because that's the shape of the earth. That's pretty much it. It's the shape of the fucking earth. It's a globe. Only makes sense as a globe. They had this. I love talking about it. I can't get enough. So the flat Earth. Punch up a flat Earth map, because it's absolutely insane to think that this is it. They say that Antarctica is off limits. If you look at the Antarctic Treaty signed by these governments that are all in cahoots about this flat Earth, you will see that people aren't allowed there. And they talk about it like that's the truth. Meanwhile, thousands of people go there a year. There's cruises to Antarctica. You're allowed.
The real Antarctica, though?
All right, Garrett. Oh, Garrett's a flat header.
How did they explain the North Pole then? How does there get ice in the middle of this planet?
Well, because the sun rotates around what would be the equator.
Oh.
See, the equator would be right through kind of South America, Africa right there. That's where the sun and moon spin around at only a few miles up. They're very small.
Aren't there times where the Earth casts a shadow on the moon?
Shut up.
Oh.
Fucking stupid. You mean an eclipse? That man-made thing? I don't know. That's the thing. And I watched a lot of shit. I can't get them to explain an eclipse. My biggest fucking thing here. Oh, and this was funny too. They were talking about well, if you look, there are no direct flights from, where were they talking? From Sao Paulo, South America, to Sydney, Australia. Because on a flat Earth map, you'll see it's this, and then they go to Dubai, and then they have to go down, and it's like, well, Emirates does that. And if you look at fucking Air Orient, they go to the Orient first and down. It's just what planes do. They have to get back to where they fucking started. So they talk about the air travel thing, and then they go, and then one guy said, look at the flat Earth map. From Sao Paulo to Sydney, Australia, you have to cross over the Middle East. See? You go through like Europe and the Mideast, North Africa. And he goes, look, and it takes that long and everything. So he goes, okay. This guy says, all right, let's make that straight line. And it takes that long. He goes, but it's the same distance from, I think it was LA to Japan, the same hour amount of flight. He goes, but that, if you go straight line, is just this short little line. Because it's the same time. And then the pilots, by the way, are all bamboozled because of GPS. That was their excuse. Pilots don't even know what's going on. They circumnavigate this, but they don't even understand that the world is flat. So
there's like a puppet master controlling all the planes to make them fly longer to trick people that.
Yeah, they don't have. They never have the way to elaborate where you go, oh, that makes sense. Nothing ever makes sense. So pop that map up again. This is the thing that gets me every fucking time, and I can't get an answer. Now, there's the flat Earth. Where would the equator be? Well, the equator would be a circle around midway from the North Pole to the edge of the Antarctic edge, where you'd fall off the Earth, if I may say that with a straight face. So right in the middle would be the equator, which, as we know on a globe, is the furthest distance on the sphere, right at the big fat waistline. It's the 24,000 some odd change mile.
The diameter.
Of, or circumference.
Circumference, yeah.
Of the Earth. You can't get a wider place than that. But if you go by this, if you take a boat and circumnavigate the rim of Antarctica, right in the ocean, right? And you go around, that would be a much longer trip than the circle you would take on the equator. Now, how is that possible when we know the equator is the furthest distance you can go? If you just wrap around on the ocean, just on the rim, just looking at Antarctic, the big rim, that would be such a further voyage than the equator, which we know is the furthest distance on the planet. They can't fucking tell me that. It's just more, well, they lie to you. Well, who's they, and why are they lying, and why the fuck am I arguing this? So, Owen, again, I respect your ability and your passion in wanting to speak about everything. I know this isn't Owen Benjamin's life, isn't Flat Earther. I know it. He's got a lot of things he talks about, and a lot of things shake people up, and I think that's awesome. But the flat Earth thing, I just cannot look at. And the fact that a lot of flat Earth people, and Benjamin included, Owen Benjamin included, mock people that argue for a spherical Earth is hilarious. Like, you're mocking the people that are paying attention to the science and the logic, just the logic in a spherical Earth. But we're like, yeah, well, you don't know about it. And he even said that. He goes, yeah, if you don't want to know about spheres and planes, I know a lot about the Earth, astronomy, geology, history. I know a lot about that shit. You can't just throw away Anthony, the Down syndrome kid, knows nothing about the differences between a spherical Earth and a flat Earth, and why one is extremely plausible and logical, and one is bordering on insanity to believe in it. Or you're just trying to make money on web hits, or you're really a mongoloid, Like there's so many things there that I know Owen is a smart guy. He's a very smart guy. So that's the boggling part of this whole thing. When I see smart people trying to sell this, I get dumbfounded. I just can't figure it out. We'll take a few calls and then have our guests in. Here we go. Scott, Virginia, what's up?
Hey, man, what's up? Hey, you said something about the flat earthers saying that the pilots use GPS. Well, the first fucking letter stands for global. So how can they believe in GPS? And also, that Mark Sargent guy, when you were watching that documentary, how funny is it how fast he gets put on the pay no mind list by that redhead that he's following around in that movie, that girl?
Yeah, he hooked up with this redheaded girl who does podcasts, and she's a good-looking girl, and she's very professional in broadcasting and whatnot. She comes off as very good. I think she's nuts with the flat Earth thing, but this guy just couldn't close the deal. He's such a nerd, and you could tell she was kind of into him. You know, they had this commonality, and they worked together, and she wanted to move up there with him. Yeah, she wanted to move up there with him, and he just blew it. He just dropped the ball. He's a nerd. He's a geeky, nerdy guy who just likes the attention he's getting from this flat Earth thing. He looks like Tim Sabian, doesn't he? Fucking another nut. No, I liked him. He's just a little kooky. Yeah, the documentary is really kind of funny because then at the end, they're trying to prove that the Earth doesn't rotate on an axis because it's not a sphere. So they got this gyroscope, and you figure the deviation would be 15 degrees every hour, and the gyro would prove that. So they got this green laser gyro. This fucking thing was like $20,000, and they set it up, and oops, 15 degrees. It turned out like they couldn't. And so then they tried putting it in a tube made of some kind of metal, and still 15 degrees. And then they're at this convention, and the camera's kind of eavesdropping on this guy. And he's like, yeah, we're working on it. He goes, this isn't for public consumption. Because it dispels what you're saying. You tried to prove something and wound up proving the opposite because it's a sphere that's rotating on an axis. So their experiments are very... When you're a scientist or anybody, you could just be a person who wonders about something. You have to be unbiased. I see this a lot when I watch air disasters. These people go to the crash site with no preconceived notion. It's almost a talent to be able to do that. If you've seen so many air crashes, you could probably step up, look, and go, I could kind of figure this one out. But you actually have to put all that out of your head and let the evidence guide you to wherever it ends up. And that's what science is. You're not supposed to think of a goal, of a finish line, and then try to find that through the science that you're randomly cherry picking. The flat earthers love doing it that way. Oh, do they love having their goal that the earth is indeed a plane, it is flat, it is covered by a dome. I don't know what that part is all about. And whatever they do, they'll try to make their science fit into that criteria that will land them at their agenda finish line. It's not how science works. And a lot of the scientists that dispel their step-by-step proof that the earth is flat go through that, and it's pretty funny. The dome thing is just great. I believe 70% of flat earthers believe in the dome. The other 30 don't. They think it's a flat earth and everything, but some of them believe that there are just more flat planes with other people on them, and that it's floating around in some galaxy-like thing. But 70% believe that there is a fucking dome, like we're in a snow globe. We live in a snow globe. And the sun and moon are in there, in the dome, spinning around. Now, look at, this is another thing. Look at this picture. The sun, right now you would have the New World, the Americas, the Western Hemisphere in daylight, right there. Now, the nighttime would be the other side. The terminator, the line between day and night is very straight. It's a very straight line because when you shine light on a sphere, that dividing line between day and night is precise, half the fucking globe. When you hang a light over a flat plane like that, it's going to diffuse in a circle. So you would have, let's say the North Pole, right there at the North Pole is day and night, right on the half of the North Pole. Now, does that mean all the way down that straight line through the North Pole is also day and night? No, it would be closer to South America because it would be a circle. You can't make the light go further on the sides than it is in the middle. But they have no answer for that. The model doesn't work. It doesn't work. And the seasons they have is the fact that that the sun will spin around on the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer, and it will slowly move closer or further away. But there's no science that says that the sun takes a shorter course, changes its speed during the day. It's a constant. But they can't fucking come up with anything reasonable, so they have this half-assed, everything's half-assed. If you question any of their theories on a flat earth, they have a kind of answer that one more question and the whole thing falls apart.
What about the stars that have been in the same spot for hundreds of thousands of years recorded?
They just can't. There's no real answer as to what those are, where they are, but they're in the dome. The clouds are in the dome. They talk about, here's one of my favorites. Oh, we could just stand on the equator. They go, how come the equator, you could stand there and gravity holds you on Earth, but you stand at the North Pole and it's not spinning, it's just there, and it's still, you're the same gravity right there. Like your weight would be the same. Wouldn't the centrifugal force of going 1,000 miles an hour fling you off into space? They love using 1,000 miles an hour because it sounds very fast. In 24 hours, that's a day. They don't do it as a percentage or as something which is so small. Here's one thing that somebody used. Goes, take one of those carousels in a playground, you know, that you put someone on and spin them around. And of course, they fly off the thing. Now do one spin in 24 hours. First of all, it's a dull ride. Secondly, are you going to feel any pressure that's trying to push you off of that? 24 hours for one spin. And I was thinking of the same kind of thing, a 24-hour clock. Let's have a 24-hour clock. Put a little speck of something on the end of the hour hand and expect it to get flung off from the breakneck speed it's doing to go around 24 hours. It's inconsequential. Flat earthers hate to think about the size of things, the scale of the earth. I don't see a curve when I look at the scale is unbelievable. The eye, it's very hard for the eye to pick up a curve on your field of vision on a planet that's this big. Once you get higher up in a plane or in a spaceship, you really start noticing the curvature of the earth and the atmosphere and whatnot. But I find it hilariously funny that people believe this when there's just so much evidence to the contrary. Nathan, what's up?
And, you know, I mean, I think that if we just think about this logically, I actually was able to talk with former Governor Ventura about this particular issue. And
Flat Earth, off the grid.
All of this was flat earthers were made the frogs gay.
You cut out a little there, my friend. I'm off the grid on a flat earth. That's where I'm going. I'm going to the underside where the sun don't shine.